All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Pat Flynn Show. As you'll notice, this is not Dan John. This is Alex, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin. Dan just texted me he's having a slight technical difficulty, but he will be with us shortly, and we're going to talk about how to get strong or stronger at the kettlebell military press, the overhead kettlebell military press, a fantastic upper body exercise. There's Dan. We're bringing him in now. Dan, we're already live, so don't say anything too horrendous because it'll be on the record. Good morning to you.
Well, good morning. Sorry, the technical difficulty was I couldn't find the connecting wire.
Well, I know. What are you going to do? Hey, we missed a week, Dan. It's always a shame.
How you doing? And the thing is, I had prepared my schedule to work around you. I was in Washington, D.C., working with the brave men of a certain group of the FBI. And but it worked out great. I mean, it gave me more time to hang out in Sky Club that day. So it's
good. Well, I felt ashamed because my excuse was I was traveling, and here Dan John, who was also traveling, had already prepared to do the podcast. So I realized that I was just being pretty lame. So it won't happen again.
The word hero gets thrown around.
Rightfully so. Well, good to be back, Dan. The people want to hear about military pressing today and how to get stronger at that. So we can get there.
Excuse me, stop. No, what the people want to know is last night's trivia game. Yes, the Andersons pulled off another victory. Our largest margin since the St. Patrick's week. So
phenomenal.
We're a very proud team.
What was the finale question? Because last time it was so check this out, Alex. Last time it was how many bathrooms were there in the White House? And I gave a completely random guess, and I think I was one off. But which Price is Right rules I still lost, but I was happy with that.
No, the last round was just kind of some vague stuff, but there was no like theme last night. That's why people ask me what the questions were. I'm like, gosh, because there's no theme. It was good though. It was good, and the train is coming by, so good.
You guys can hear that? I'm in my basement. You can still hear the train that's that's in my backyard. So that's pretty
okay. So I'm ready to go. So okay, I'm sorry. I've done this.
Right. No, very good. So Alex is he's going to hop in this conversation. I'm going to talk about the kettlebell military press today, and it's a common question. I get it a fair amount. Dan and Alex, I know you two get it. Is how do you get better at this thing, right? Well, I guess first off, why should you, right? So always good to start with the basics. Why do we like the press? Why is the press worth doing? And then, and always an important question is, where's that line, right? When is strong enough with the military press? So Dan, why don't we start with you? But I'd like to hear both of your thoughts on this.
So if, on that list of stupid questions, the one that goes, if you could do only one exercise, what would it be? I've always thought the clean and press is that one exercise. There's something magical about holding a load vertically overhead. If you have any postural issues, it's going to get exposed. If you have symmetry issues, especially with the double kettlebell or the barbell military press, you're going to get exposed. There is something, I mean, you look back on those guys when the Olympic press was in, and really everybody wants to look like, 1960 Olympic lifters. That is what most men tell me they want to look like. They don't know it because there's this bodybuilding image that's kind of taken over with the more bloated pec look and the some different things. But, if you want barnyard wide shoulders and Tyrannosaurus triceps, the military press is your best. The other thing too that you might miss is that to do the military press, your pelvic bowl has to be aligned with the rib cage and the lower structures. So it forces a loose hip flexor, psoas muscle. It forces a tight glute. It's a built-in lower body exercise. It doesn't look it. So I just think it's marvelous.
Great. Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think the postural part in particular is something that a lot of people overlook, because one of the issues that a lot of people run into, from my perspective, most of the people who come to me for training related advice and programming and that sort of a thing, they have sedentary jobs, so they sit most of the day. they're hunched over, and then they want to press something overhead, and they're missing out on an essential element of it, which is what Dan just talked about. You need to have loosened up hip flexors. You need to have you need to at least not have many postural issues. You should mostly have that taken care of. And I think it is a good assessment in a way to show how well put together you are. And there are some movements that you can do to work around your inability to do the military press, at least initially. But if you ever want to be awesome, you do have to be able to push some weight over your head. So I think in terms of a general snapshot of how well you're moving, as well as how strong you are, the military press really does show you a lot. And so the road to getting there might differ from person to person, but there are still going to be certain checkpoints that you're going to have to pass along the way before you can really be awesome at the military press.
Yes, very good. Hey, real quick, let me put my petitions in. Gentle listeners, please like and share if you're joining us on the live stream. We will be doing Q&A, as always, toward the second half of this episode. I see many wonderful comments coming in, so you can submit your questions now. We will get to those eventually. So, Dan, back to you then. Let's talk standards. Everybody loves to talk standards. What are we looking at here for the military press? Do we have a sort of floor and ceiling that you'd like to have people operate between?
So this was the thing that I got most pushback from my high school varsity standards for male and female athletes. For females, we originally had the standard at 75 pounds, and then we slid it down to 70 because of so I had women, deadlifting around, 275 to 315, and they would press 70, and it wasn't like they were, they were good lifters. And on the male side, it's only 115 pounds for a high school boy. And I think so, gentle listener, I expected a high school male to clean 205, front squat 205, back squat 255, deadlift 315, and then I say a 115 press, and people go, that seems really low. Yeah, but it's because you haven't done the military press. So one of the first things you're going to run into when you do the military press is once you get to body weight, just like in the snatch, once you get the body weight in the clean and press and the Olympic snatch, there is a magical transition that happens. If you tell me you press body weight and snatch body weight, it's just like there's this little internal nod I have, like, yeah, you're okay. You've covered, you're getting stuff in the weight. The stuff you're doing in the weight room is going to carry over into your life and your field of play. So there's a couple of quick ones. So 70 for a high school. So we're looking, gentle listeners who aren't American, a 14 to 17-year-old girl, 70 pound, 30-ish kilo. Wait, no, check that. 25-ish kilo press-ish. A male, 50 kilo, 52 kilos, 115 pound, and then body weight. Those are fairly tame standards. But that tells you why people don't do it.
Yeah, when it comes to standards, I like the idea of kind of like a floor and a ceiling. So I like the idea of ranges. Ranges make sense to me when we're talking about standards. Now let's slide over to kettlebells, Dan, because I remember the old standard. I've kind of been out of the RKC sort of world for a while, but it used to be, I think it was, to pass the cert, you had to be able to do 5 double presses with 224s for men and 216s for women. Is that still the standard? And if so, how do you feel about it?
No, for one thing, it's 4. Who the hell does 4?
It's 4. We've talked about 4 reps of 4. Who does 4 reps of anything?
I don't first. And then
Alex probably does. Alex seems like a guy who would do 4 reps of something.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And then on the female side, we have a lot of wiggle room because, like I said before, I mean, to repeat, gentle listener, one of the great things that came out of the 1950s studies in strength and training is they put these concentric circles on a human figure that was asexual. And the idea was in the inner circle, which is basically your hip and abdominal range, women can get as 80% as strong as men. So if a man can squat 500, a well-trained woman can squat 400. But the next circle out, there's a large drop off in strength. and to the area that this movement here, the forearm extensor, a female can only build that up to 55% of a male. Now, still, so that's why when you teach females a shot put, there's real value in starting, even though you might do their turning drills with their 4K implement, you'd want them to do throwing drills with even a softball or a 1K or 2K load, and to give time for this to develop, this snappy forearm extensor. Mm-hmm. So when you're working with females, their press is always going to be weird compared, and that's why those numbers from the Soviets, which were bullshit anyway, didn't work, and they're even less so with females. I always talk about my friend Mindy, who could bench 135 pounds, 60 kilos for 10 reps, but her max was 140.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Mm-hmm.
And people thought, well, that's strange. That's what the chart says. And I just want to slap them and say, yeah, because the charts, they're basically figments of imagination first, and then number two, they didn't use females. Study.
Okay, very good. I see Alex is having all sorts of conversations in multiple different languages at once in our chat here. So this is very interesting. Hello. We have hellos from Germany, from Jerusalem. Good to see everybody here from around the world. Poland, great to have all of you. Again, we'll be doing a Q&A as we move along here. So please submit whatever you have. All right. So let's move into the next stage of the conversation then. We kind of, I guess, have an idea of why the military press is awesome, why it's worth doing, how it can benefit you. And we kind of have a range, right, of kind of where I think we want to be or should be with this. So how do we get there? What does a good sort of basic military press training program look like? Dan, how do we get stronger at the military?
Lift weights. Press. You got to press. And that is, here's the funny thing about Americans anyway. We do a lot of upper body work, but we don't do very much vertical pressing.
Right. And
that is probably here's my list of gaps: no loaded carries, no authentic squatting. So that's why simply adding the suitcase carry, the farmer walk changes most athletes. Adding the goblet squat is radically helpful. And would you mind to remind me about the goblet squat and rocking in just a minute?
Sure.
And then there's almost no vertical pressing.
Yep.
So when you come to me and as your strength coach, I have you start doing kettlebell presses, which are almost universally overhead. And then we move into some barbell work overhead. We do goblet squats, we do overhead squats and farmer walks and sled pulls. And in a month or so, you're like, oh my God, Dan John is such a great coach. Well, it's not a great coach. You had this bucket of gaps. Mm-hmm. I filled the gap, and now you have, and that magic happened, so.
What type of protocol that has always done fairly well for me whenever I need to get the press up, and people that I've experimented on, that's probably not the best way to describe it, but we'll just leave it at that. It's just a basic 3-day-a-week program, and I'll have both of your thoughts on this, where you kind of have one day that focuses more on intensity, you have one day that focuses more on volume and just pure technique practice, and one day where you focus on maybe an explosive variation, something like that, right? So there's a cliche that in order to press a lot, you need to press a lot, right? If you want to get better at pressing, you got to press. It's genius with a capital J, right? But I found that kind of structure works well because you get a decent amount of loading in, but not too much. You hit a decent amount of volume, but not too much. And then you also kind of hit the different ends of the force velocity spectrum with the kind of explosive variations as well. So that's an approach I like. But Alex, I'd be curious your thoughts, because you've had to kind of like amp your press up a number of times for the various certs, stuff like that. And then Dan, want to know what you do to take somebody from zero to hero when they're preparing for the certs on the press.
Well, one thing I would say is I like your approach. I think it seems somewhat reminiscent of like what they would do at Westside, for example, which is like you have a heavier day and then like a speed day, and then they include some hypertrophy type of stuff in there. Which
right. Oh, I'm not original at all.
No, that's the thing.
Is pretty standard type programming, right?
No, but that's what I'm saying is that you shouldn't try to be too original, folks. You should follow a plan that works. I have done some somewhat experimental plans. Sometimes they work out well. Sometimes, I'm able to recertify by the skin of my teeth. Like this is what happened the last time. Actually, I just didn't have access to a lot of bells, so I was only pressing my 24s. And, one thing that did help, I was doing snatch and press, and I found that was useful. But no matter what, I mean, I think you're going to need to get into volume one way or the other. So sometimes people will make the mistake of pressing too heavy. Again, I've gone that route and it still worked for me, but it took a lot out of me to do it. And I'm assuming most of you have other obligations, like, to your spouse, your family, work, maybe other extracurricular activities.
Being able to turn your neck when you're backing out of the driveway.
Right, exactly. You don't want to have like gun turret traps where you just can't actually turn your neck. So you need to have a sensible program, but one that you can push it enough where you can actually see the needle moving on the dial. Not something that just gets so slowly, incrementally higher in volume that you get to a point where it's like your entire workout turns into the military press. And that's why I like your approach, Pat, because I think that spending one day where you're going maybe a little heavier, a day where you're trying to press a little faster, and then another day where you're just trying to get in a lot of volume is a nice way to get all ends of the spectrum. So I would say, in terms of just purely focusing on the military press, that would be a good way to do it. The other thing is, I think, and some people thrive on this, would be some assistance exercises might be in order. If you can't get the volume necessary with the military press, tossing in some assistance work to kind of help to boost your results is never a bad idea.
Dan, what is that adorable drink you have there?
It's called black coffee. It comes from it's mountain grown. It's the richest kind. It's from a small place called Folgers.
One of those local hometown companies.
Yeah, it's one of those little. Yeah, they're driving out. They're gentrifying. No, anti-gentrifying my neighborhood.
Well, so Dan, sorry, Alex, go ahead. Yeah,
I was just going to say, it sounds very tasty. Like it almost might be the best part of waking up.
Oh, hey, what's actually funny is Alex, he loves his Turkish coffee and all this fancy stuff. So he comes over to our house, right?
Yeah.
And my wife had already brewed coffee. He comes up, he gets a cup poured, and he goes crazy over it. Thinks like this is the best coffee he's ever tasted in his life. Ask what it is. It's Folgers.
I don't think I said it was the best, but I did say it was very good.
You were going crazy, man. He lost it.
I'm doing a cert this weekend. Not a cert, pardon me. I'm doing a workshop this weekend for Ben Fogel at Epic Fitness, just kettlebells. So I asked him, I have a church coffee urn, one of those old stainless steel ones you always have.
Yep.
I love church coffee, where they make it and the pot hasn't been cleaned since the guys came back from World War II, and it's, when you plug it in the wall, you get hit by a spark and it, makes your eyes, that's my favorite coffee.
That's best kind of coffee.
Yeah, the kind of coffee. All you have to do is add hot water because it's so stained that you get plenty of coffee. Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Hot bean water. Good stuff. All right, Dan. So you're prepping somebody on the press. What's your general approach look like these days?
Well, in this perfect world, like if I had plenty of time, I wouldn't mind up to 5 days a week pressing. But now if we're going up to 5, this is kind of more of an easy strength thing. So if I could have a month, 6 weeks with this person, 8 weeks with this person, where we had them do presses, basically in a little rhythm of like you did. I like what you said. So so there's a day where there's like 2 sets of 5. There's the next day is more tonic, 1 set of 10 lighter, and then day 3 we're going to do some some push jerks or something like that. I like this kind of idea, what you said. But day 4, so we're still in the same week, 2 sets of 5, 3 sets of 3, where you're pressing every day for a while. Now we're talking about specifically the military press, gentle listener. So for me, I'd rather have you practice the guitar 5, 6, 7 days a week when you're first learning than practice it once every 2 weeks. Does that make sense? I'm trying to get some. So, and the thing is, if I'm doing a light set of 10 the day after a heavy workout, I'm the phrase we use is, of course, greasing the groove, but I'm also getting that tonicness. So, okay, once we've done that, I got to tell you, Pat, I got a little bit of a, I don't want to be inappropriate. I enjoyed physically hearing you say volume, intensity, and explosiveness in a week. I thought that was really good. What would be nice is that if we did we go do it like I'm going to do it like an athlete. I would go intense day 1, I would go volume day 2, and then I'd be explosive on day 3. Okay. Then what I would do, so I like that 3-day-a-week program. In fact, honestly, Patrick, to be honest with you, we might be done, but I do want to add 2 more thoughts.
Let's do it.
And then if I see that you do have a weakness, and almost universally there's 2 weaknesses. Everyone thinks that the midpoint is the weak part of the press. I've always thought, just like the pull-up, that is the ending point we need. So if you have issues, we would do, now I got it. So when I trained with Dick Nuttmeyer, at the end of every clean and jerk, we did these little press outs like that.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind either doing so I'm doing a set of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And at the end of the set of 5, I do these quick little,
just the last like 20% range of motion. Yeah.
We would do, I don't think I ever counted them ever, but since this is the age of I'm too stupid to train myself, it'd be about 4 to 8 of those little, because 4 is the only number that's correct, to 4 of those. And then the other thing I think helps is I would have you we used to call them press heaves. You step back from the rack, and you could do this, by the way, with kettlebells easily too. Double kettlebell clean, the heaviest bell you have, get it here, and you kind of go, okay, and it's so a press heave. So if I press 3,
how do we describe that in words for people who are just listening? What the press heave is?
Hold on.
If you're watching, you got the demonstration, but yeah, if you're just listening,
hold on. Let me draw you a word picture here. I cracked myself up. Okay. Fortunately, I make myself laugh. I don't make anyone else. So basically, you're going to step back off the rack with maybe 15, 20 pounds over your max. Mm-hmm. You're in the front squat position, and what you're going to do is kind of, I would say it's kind of dip-ish. In fact, you could probably even bend your knees, and you drive the weight up. Just clear your shoulders, try to hold the weight there, and then let it come back down.
Right. There's a sort of compression and then expansion. This upper body compression and expansion. Right.
So that would be. So I like the idea of 3 weeks of the Pat Flynn model. I do. And then at the end of week 3, we look and we say, okay, where are the weak points? And then I would like to toss in one other idea that worked really well for me back in, this would be the last time I pressed overhead heavy. I was in a situation where I could only lift twice a week. Day 1 of a week, I did 3 sets of 8 in the press with 1 minute rest. And you only judge the load by the last rep on the last set. So even though, if you're a big engine person and you got 95 pounds, you got 30 kilos, and you get a set of 8's a joke, minute rest. Set of 8's a joke, minute rest. Set of 8 is a freaking nightmare. That's the one you judge it on. And then the other day a week is just your 1930s training template where you put the weight on the bar. You clean and press it, you add weight, clean and press it, add weight. And you go to whatever your max that day is. And so that's only a 2-day-a-week program. I thrived on that program. That's my lifetime best clean and strict press. Having said that, it was 2000, so I had been lifting weights for 35 years. So I did have some water under the weight.
A foundation. Right.
Yeah. So gentle listeners, to summarize, if you're struggling, I would suggest trying an easy strength idea ish, however you understand it.
I like this.
Up to 5 days a week to teach yourself to, like you're learning the guitar or learning the type. Pat's concept of 3 days a week of the volume, the intensity, and the explosion, I think would be the template for everybody. And then there'd be that step back that I would ask you to do. Let's look at where your weak points are. And by the way, the 3 sets of 8 and then the heavy other day would be something you'd want to do maybe the 3 or 4 weeks out of a cert as you're focusing more on the snatch, as you're focusing more on getting your general conditioning ready for a cert, for example.
Yeah, tremendous actionable advice there, Dan. Really appreciate it. Alex, anything you want to comment on or add to any of that before we tend to the gentle listeners' questions here?
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was cool that Dan talked about was doing like the little press outs at the end. Nowadays I think people have very black and white thinking about things, and it's either full range of motion or don't even bother.
Or don't even go to the gym. Don't even work out. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, just sit on your couch and do full range of motion like Cheeto, whatever. Cheeto curls, we'll call them, but which is different from a cheat curl, just FYI.
Well,
but at any rate, I remember reading about Chuck Sipes' training program back in the day, and this guy was like 198 pounds, could bench press 600 pounds, and he worked 12-hour days as a lumberjack. Pat, I showed you his picture once, and you laughed at how like unbelievably insane his forearms were. They were like,
yeah, I think I remember this, right? Yeah.
But he used to do those too. He would load up 100 pounds over his best lift, and he would do like little press outs, so like 1/8 of the range of motion with like the military press and the bench press. And he did it for the purpose of I think for strengthening his tendons in particular. But it's a great idea.
So that's interesting. If you don't mind, Fred Hatfield's work, he talks about these little jerky motions to build up connective tissue. So Fred Hatfield, the great power lifter, the great squatter, came up with the phrase compensatory acceleration training, which now we would say use chains and bands. Love him or hate him, but Tony Robbins, this guy, Tony Robbins, giant steps lead the field. Anthony Robbins. People got on him because a couple of years ago he claimed to have a 550 bench. Well, he was doing that short range work, which, and by the way, I mean, like I always say about him, love him or hate him, I like his work. He does look good he does look good, and he trains with tight movements too. And of course, if you come to my gym, you'll find some autographed pictures of a guy named Bill March. In fact, he was that great Olympic lifter who was also Mr. Universe, who did functional isometric contraction. And I've actually had an email from him. He's an older man now, much older. He's got to be in his early or mid 80s, and but he shared with me some things about how he did isometrics 4 days a week, and then totaled in the gym, clean and press, snatch, clean and jerk every Saturday. But everything was these micro movements. And so I like your point, Alex, is that this idea that we've walked away from these great insights. And again, we're letting the tail wag the dog in our field. We're letting the bodybuilders tell the rest of us how to train, which is great. I mean, can I rant for about 10 seconds?
Please. Yeah, of course.
So Laree sent me a whole bunch of books. She's cleaning out some of her library, and a lot of them are these autobiographies of bodybuilders. And I am exhausted emotionally reading these books because they lie so much in their books. I know the one bodybuilder, I swear I never touched any anabolics. Well, I mean, he's famous for it. And there's another guy who said, who once after he came to Jesus, regrets all the things he did, all his criminal past and all the drugs he did. And I'm like, oh. And there's another one who the very best food source you can have is his protein powder. So the ultimate thing that God wants you to put into your body is his protein powder. I mean, but
that's it.
I am learning a lot. And I don't know how much it's going to help me as a coach and person or instructor, but it's helping me at some level.
Good. I'm happy to hear that, Dan.
So this is sometimes in academics, it's helpful to read the antithesis of everything you believe.
Right.
So if you're an absolute Adam Smith capitalist, you better know the work of Karl Marx really, really well. And if you're from the Socrates, Plato, Aristotle world, you better read your Wittgenstein. So
that's very Hegelian of you, Dan. So excellent. All right, let's do some questions. We got some lots of good comments already, so we'll get through as much as we can here. Thank you again, Dan and Alex, for that awesome advice. I think this is one of those podcasts that people will be able to put it right to action, which
I hope so,
which we always love. Raju says, "Hey, Pat and Dan, Sorry, Alex, you didn't get included in this one.
Yeah,
So if you can just sit there quietly, Alex, we'll take care of this.
Loser.
He says, I can clean and press a 20 kilogram and 16 kilogram efficiently and individually. But when I combine the bells, it ends up a failed lift. Is this a technique issue or am I weak and stupid?
There is a third option.
So when he combines them, Raji, okay, there's two ways I can hear this. First, so I do this thing called what is that thing where you have two kettlebells in one hand?
Stacked kettlebell press.
What was that?
The stacked
kettlebell
press. Yeah, I do that. It's kind of a circus trick at certs. And are you telling me you can't press the 36 combined in one hand, or do you have the 20 and the 16 one hand?
Right. I'm gonna guess it's the latter because the former seems like, well, duh, right? Right. That's might be a pretty big leap.
Well, I do like the idea of what he's doing here, and it is interesting because, as always, as good as a single press is, the double press highlights issues. As good as a double press is, the single press highlights issues.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if it's not even a press issue with him; it's a stack issue. It's your butt, it's your hip flexors, it's your feet, it's your. So when you're trying to, like, sometimes I do it at certs just to be kind of a dick, but I'll do a 1-footed. So I'll take 1 foot up off the ground and I'll press the 40, and I'll show as little tension as I can with my offside. Now the reason I do that is because thank you, Raju. The reason I do that is trying to show them that when your engine gets to a certain place, you don't have to have the tension that I don't need a ton of tension to press the 24. I don't need any at all. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying straight up. But it seems for this listener, Raju, that when you got the double press, I would argue that it's what lies beneath, one of Harrison Ford's better films that no one likes.
I know. I like that one.
Yeah,
I like that one a lot. Yeah.
What lies beneath is the problem, Raju.
Yeah, that one's a hidden gem. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's not your press that's the issue. It's everything below your pectoral line that might be the issue. Gentlemen, what do you think?
I think that is a very distinct possibility because a lot of times, you can get away with, we talked about the posture earlier, you can get away with a lot more with a single press than you can with a double. There's no side bend, to kind of help you out with the double like there is with the single. Your T-spine mobility really has to be on board. The other thing that it could be is, let's imagine everything else is held equal. Like, let's say you got good enough mobility, good posture. You're maybe just starting off with kettlebells, so your tension might still need a little bit of work, but it's otherwise pretty good. There's always the possibility that it's just a matter of the bilateral strength deficit, which just means that we've only got so much like neural juice that you can put toward a particular activity, and if you try to spread it between both limbs rather than just one, you might find that it's going to be harder. Like, for instance, let's say your best press overall is the 20 kilo, right? And then you add a 16 into the other hand. Well, now you're taking some juice out of the side that is pressing the 20. And as far as I know, the bilateral strength deficit can be up to 25%. So that means that, maybe a pair of 16s, you might be able to squeeze out a rep, but the addition of that extra weight in the 20 could be the issue. So it could be a number of things. We just don't really have enough information, but I would say start with the most obvious thing first, which is what Dan said, the strength. You want to make sure that your butt is tight, your glutes are tight, everything else is under control. But then after that, it might just be a matter of like, you need to spend a little bit more time, getting good with both the 16 and the 20. And then eventually, the double press will be more doable.
And I would be curious, and Raju, please comment if we get through it. The rest we'll try and circle back to this. But are you able to seesaw press as opposed to double press too? That might help to diagnose some issues here.
And one thing about the seesaw press is, which one do you mean? So, gentle listeners, what I'm showing the seesaw press, the original that I learned, it's when I was young, is that you pressed fully with your right hand, brought it down to your shoulder, pressed fully with your left hand, pulled it down with your shoulder.
Yeah.
Then the seesaw press became, as I'm going up with one hand, I'm coming down
with the other. Right. Mm-hmm.
There's a seesawy look. But the one I've discovered I like the best, and it might be good for Raju, you have both bells overhead.
Mm-hmm.
You bring the right one down to the shoulder, press it back up.
Way back up.
The left one back down to the shoulder.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, let's get some names on there. So I'm with you, Dan. When they're moving simultaneously, I tend to call that seesaw press. When only one is moving at a time, I call that alternating press.
Okay.
And then I guess we just call it reverse alternating press if they're held at the top. How about that? We'll fix that. We'll fix that terminology for all eternity.
And the reason I would, when I pull you aside to cert, if you have press problems, very often the alternating, what did you call it? The reverse alternating?
Yeah.
Okay. The reverse alternating press is one of my recommendations because what the person doesn't have is overhead stability.
Yeah, great. Good stuff.
Bench press, but no ability to hold a load over their head.
Right, cool. Joey Yang's checking in. He sent me a very nice piece of correspondence last night. He was excited for the stream. He says, hello, Pat, Dan, and the Hebrew Hammer. It's your favorite fan follower here in Korea. It's 11 p.m., so I'm tuning in with some Canadian whiskey, Crown Royal. Hello, Joey.
I know Joey. I've met him. He's a great guy. He actually helped me with interpretations at a not interpretations. When I say translations, thank you, Keith. Got to stay off the drugs before 8 o'clock. Oh wait, it's after 8. Joey was really helpful. Good dude. Thanks for coming on board, Joey.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for staying up late. If you got us a question you want us to jam on or something, Joey, let us know. But good to have you here in the stream. Anthony says last week's traffic ride home wasn't the same without you guys. I know. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I stared at my computer for the entire hour, so that's good.
Sammy says, hello, my three wise men. Saul says, cheers from Minnesota. He's got double mugs this morning. He's got a protein recovery mix and coffee with coconut.
Oh, geez. Well, all right.
Yeah. All right. Let's find a question here. So always good to see the comments. Hello, everybody. Sorry, scrolling. I see a lot of Alex typing in squiggly marks here.
Jonathan is from Tampa. Congratulations on this big Super Bowl win.
Saul has a question here. He says, I've had levator scap issues from the past years in the time trial position on his TRI bike. He's recently been doing military press, and it started to twinge a bit, especially on the downward motion. Do we have any advice for him? Alex, I saw you already typed something up. Do you want to just reiterate that?
Yeah, one of the things I suggested to him was to see an ART certified chiropractor. I've had some levator scap issues in the past, and other things in the shoulder girdle that will sometimes crop up while you're pressing. And I think that is probably going to be the best thing to do. You want to get somebody to diagnose it and tell you what's really going on. Another thing that might help, and this is just meathead Alex talking, so I'm not saying that this is definitely going to be the thing that will do exactly what you need, but doing some shrugs might help, because I believe that can actually help to kind of stretch out the levator scap. So if you have like a pair of kettlebells and you want to do a couple sets of shrugs, you might find that to be helpful. But I would definitely see a professional first and foremost, just because they might be able to tell you other things that are going on that is causing the levator scap to bark at you.
Well, you know what? This is a good time because, Dan, you said you wanted me to bring back up goblet squats and rocking. So why don't we spend a little bit of time talking about some maybe supplementary exercises that either directly or indirectly may help people with the military press, either in performance or just general safety and stuff like that. So, yeah. Well,
the only thing I would like to do, at first, I like Alex instantly went to go see somebody. I have some screwed up. So, throwing the discus for, I don't know, what was it, 50 years or 40 years or whatever, at a high level, I've got all kinds of issues, through here. And I also play in American football. I got issues in here. So Mike, who's my physical therapist, great man. Hi, Mike. He basically gave me some good advice about my little issues. I think it's scap issues, but my job is to not know anatomy when I'm getting help with a physical therapist. My job is to do what he tells me to do. And two things he told me to do was stop doing neck mobility work, which, by the way, I'm not telling the entire world to do that. This is for me. But the thing he had me do is just very simply what you said, is do those shoulder shrugs. Well, about 2 days after I start taking his advice, I get a crack in my neck and scap where literally, I tell you, literally, I could feel all of a sudden everything slide back into place. So get a good set of eyes first. Get somebody who knows what they're doing first. Then this is going to be the hardest part. Follow their advice.
Oh, I was with you until that last part.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Alex, and I'll talk about that.
No. I just putting my microphone in place. I have nothing else to add.
Just putting it, yeah. All right. Well, you have something to add. What are your general thoughts, Alex, and Dan, you too, on just supplementary exercises? Alex, we know you're a big fan of the developmental movement patterns, just for shoulder health and stuff like that in general, that you think minimalist. Let's keep it minimalist, that people can be doing around their military press sessions. Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things that I think is really good is I like YTWLs and shoulder external rotations. YTWLs help with strengthening the lower and middle traps, which help you to pull your shoulder blades down and back. Is very important for military pressing, pull-ups, really anything. And then shoulder external rotations, which I will usually do. I'll just show you right here, like this. I have my elbow propped up on something, and I've got maybe very light weight in my hand, maybe even no weight, depending on how new this is to you. But most of upper body strength work that we do is very intensive on the internal rotation of the shoulder as a necessity of the movement. So, push-ups, military press, pull-ups, rows are about the only thing that aren't really intensive on internal rotation. So it's just helpful to have a little bit of external rotation work just to kind of keep your rotator cuff happy. The rotator cuff is going to get worked when you're doing anything overhead anyway, but never hurts to do a little bit extra, I have found. And those two things have helped keep me from getting, what I used to get, which is a lot of like knots in the shoulder girdle and stuff like that. So highly recommended.
I pulled up this comment here, Alex, from Aaron, who says that he doesn't have pain, but he's got the Rice Krispies going. He can feel and hear a lot of the crunching through the press. So anything in addition to what you just said that either of you would add to for Rice Krispie syndrome?
Well, generally, if it doesn't hurt, it's not like an immediate concern, but it might be indicative of some sort of movement issue or like a muscle imbalance. As far as I know, I could be wrong about that. It might be good, again, to see like a chiropractor or physical therapist who could explain it and maybe give you some ideas on how you can keep things moving a little more smoothly so you're not, wearing your joints down.
Dan, John T wants to know, why is overhead pressing better than bench pressing in general? First off, did we go on the record and say that? Because
I didn't. Now, here's the thing, John T, is that, well, in my world, overhead pressing tends to be better because no one's doing it. So if my opponents and my athletes' opponents are not doing something, we are, that puts us ahead. So I like it better. I would prefer overhead pressing for anybody who's over probably 30, just because of what happens to the body as we age. As we age, as you know, there's this, especially if you're sitting at our desks today talking. Now, I know a lot of you assholes out here don't agree with Yonda, and you're wrong, and I'm right. Yonda is right. But as we age, the pecs tighten up, and that there is this kind of a coming forward. If you continue to press, overhead press, you keep the deltoids firing, you keep the triceps firing, you look better, you feel better. When your neighborhood gets hit by a really big storm, your neighbors come over to ask you to move stuff, even though you're older than they are. So that's why I like overhead. I also don't like bench pressing because, in very, very few sports, and I'm a thrower, and you don't bench press the implement, you snap the implement. The bench press doesn't carry over to a lot of things. The one-arm bench press does, but not the two-arm. But John T, I don't know if I ever said better. That would be an unusual thing for me to say.
Yeah, but I mean, better for what? If you're competing in the bench press, then you got a bench press, right? But barbell bench press, I rarely do ever. I do dumbbell. I do some dumbbell work. That's a nice compliment for me, anyways. And I do dips. So I've got, for my primary pushing you've got the kettlebell stuff, the dumbbell stuff, and dips and push-ups. Always, you can't go wrong with the standard push-ups.
And I would like to point out that I believe that the bench press was adopted by a lot of people because it helped their military press. So again, if you want to ask which one is better, people started doing the bench because they wanted to get their military press better. So,
and the bench probably is the most recent of our movements. Some people think that Father Judge at Notre Dame invented it. Some others say, well, actually, it's from Germany, which makes sense because Father Judge was a German from Germany. It's relatively new. The thing about the bench that makes it so good is that it is probably the exercise that you can gain the fastest and still walk up and down stairs without getting sore. I thump around many days.
Joey says, Dan, I consider myself to be your best advocate here in the Republic of Korea. One of the challenges is disseminating your teaching here directly because language is a barrier. He wants to know, do I have your permission to teach your philosophy to the strength and fitness coaches here in Korea? I will say it word for word.
I don't want you to. I would rather you take the concepts and hone them in. Much of my work, Joey, is done with and people say I'm a storyteller, and I'm fine with that because I think that is in the great tradition of teaching. Just re-listening to the Epic of Gilgamesh yesterday, and people like my mentor Jack Schrader taught me. People love stories about people. People love stories and stories about people. People love stories and stories about people. But some of the stories won't relate to your audience. I was an American football coach. That's a non-starter in most countries. But yeah, please, you have absolute permission. Can I add something before we go?
Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Pat. I couldn't figure out how to log in on the chat, but Pat's included a really important article from Original Strength and our good friend Tim Ferriss. You know Tim too, right, Alex?
Tim Anderson, not Tim Ferriss.
Who the hell? I have got to quit smoking crack cocaine before 8 o'clock. Oh, it's after 8 o'clock.
Just got to wait till 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. Sorry.
Let's push. Yeah.
Tim Anderson. And it's an article that really, it's like one of those articles, sometimes we get a little weird in our field, but this one related to me very well. And the argument is to make the psoas muscle slide and work better, you need to have better ankle mobility. And okay, so the psoas is part of the hip flexor family. And I looked at that and I said, yeah. So I used to really fight back problems a lot. And then when I started doing Original Strength, especially 6-point rocks, I haven't had an issue with my lower back since then. Now, as a thrower and as a dad, lower back problems happen. And it's interesting to think that ankle mobility makes the lower back not hurt. Just touched my soul. Like, that's a truth. So maybe the 6-point rock, and that's why the goblet squat is so helpful for the lower back. I thought the goblet squat was helping lower backs by making the ab wall work harder, by making the hips more mobile, but it also could be because it's making the ankles more mobile.
Yeah.
Tied into something that Alex was talking about when he said with the scap issue is that very often in the human body, where the pain is showing up doesn't necessarily mean where the cure is going to be. It's always that downstream issue.
Right. That reminds me of a saying that I got from a physical therapist who I much respect and who fixed me up a number of times. If I was having a shoulder issue or an elbow issue, oftentimes he would say, look, you don't have a shoulder issue, you have a body issue. You don't have an elbow issue, you have a body issue, right? Everything is connected. Everything matters. Just because it hurts there doesn't necessarily mean that's where the problem is originating from. Maybe it is, but we got to take a more global perspective on this, right?
Which is why I think dealing with someone who's been in a traffic accident or got hurt in a rugby or football game is easier, because you can say, here's the point of impact. But if you're working with most people, I would say, and the bulk of the questions I get about injuries and pain, it's this 10, 15, 20 year issue. So if we just say, well, the problem is right there's your problem. Well, no, the problem, that's where you feel it, but it's because you've been, and then fill in the blank. And then all of a sudden someone says, oh, I mean, like the time I fell on my bike and I broke. Yeah. Why don't you tell me that in the beginning? So yeah. Okay.
Good reminders. All right. We'll take one or two more questions here. Andrew says, good day from Australia. I see a lot of people doing renegade rows with kettlebells, but they seem inherently unsafe to me since the wrist is a long way off the ground. Do you guys share this concern? So the renegade row is when somebody does a push-up on the kettlebells and then they row one arm at a time on the kettlebells.
You know what, Andrew? This is going to sound weird. I'm not against any exercise, but I don't do renegade rows basically for the same reason. As a person of multiple wrist surgeries,
It's one of those things where I think you gotta ask yourself, well, why would I be doing something like this? If it's trying to do like a bunch of heavy rows, I think you should just do rows in a more standard variation. You're just not going to be able to pull as much.
And it's a magical exercise because, you know, you are in a push-up position, plank position.
Yep.
You're sliding over. You're asked to have the amount of body tension is through the roof. But then stopping right there and listening, the question I thought was good. But there is that cost of benefit discussion. And I think that's something, Alex, I know you only come on occasionally onto our wonderful show and then take it over. But, one of the things Patrick and I talk about a lot is cost of benefits. So, and the listener is right. Did I say the renegade row is bad or wrong? No, of course not. But what I did say, boy, you'd better be able to defend it in the court after the surgery.
Right. Yeah. Some core stuff, you know, so I'm of two minds of this sort of thing. Like, yeah, I guess it's definitely less safe in as much as the kettlebell. That's the fear, right? That the kettlebell will topple over. Right. And then orthodontia is expensive. Right. So yeah, we get that.
Okay. The thumb-free bench press thing, thumb-free, okay?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Everyone was doing it back in the day because the Barbarian brothers were doing it. Looking at, boy, they must. And then
they also did reverse grip, didn't they? They did like reverse grip thumbless. It's like practically a guarantee you're going to drop it in your throat.
And then a hammer thrower at Utah State dropped the bar in his face, and the orthodontia expenses were through the roof, broken jaw, lost a whole season. Had to eat through a straw for a long time. Yeah, so his bench press was heavier, which you don't need as a hammer thrower. But hey, his bench press went up.
Right.
You don't need for a hammer thrower, but his bench press went up.
Well, it didn't go up for long. I think that's the problem.
All right, let's squeeze one more in here. It says, "Hey, this is Manuel tuning in from Panama, one of my favorite Van Halen songs.
Panama.
When working up to, it wouldn't be a Pat Flynn show episode if we didn't get a little singing from Dan John. He says, when working up to sets with single hand presses, do you prefer finishing one hand first, then the other, or do you work them at the same time?"
Okay.
I don't know if I understand the question.
First off, I have to say this: a man, a plan, a canal, Panama is one of the longest Roma Summa Amor race car. Palindrome?
Palindrome, yeah.
Palindrome. A man, a plan, a canal, Panama is one of the longest logical ones. Okay. Working up to sets with single hand presses. Do you prefer finishing one hand? Okay. This is a question for me. It's a term I use. So Pat, sometimes I'll say, we're going to do up to 25 reps, both hands in the press. And that means however you get to 25 reps. So you do a set of 7, followed by a set of 5, solid 6 by a 3, and then it totals 25 reps.
I see.
It's the same as ish, but a little bit more organized.
Right.
Generally, what we do, and the name is no longer there.
Manual.
Generally, I would do one side first and then the other. And the only reason there's no science except the fact that I get lost when I mix and match the sides. So there's no way in hell I'm going to remember how many reps I did a minute ago on the left side. I'm not dumb. I forget things.
Okay, excellent. Hey, before we wrap it up here, what is everybody working on? Dan, let's start with you. What's coming down the pipeline at Dan John University? Have any projects that you've been cooking up that you want to tease?
First, everybody's working for the weekend. So the couple things the gentle listener should know. First, I'm going to start doing a weekly essay again. I miss it. I don't have any writing assignments right now, so I'm going to start doing a weekly, maybe page or two. Number 2, I'm on Rusty Moore's Virtual Impact 14-day diet right now, which is very, like we talked about before, Patrick, very similar to yours. Basically, I'm eating a lot of vegetables and a lot of chicken, drinking a lot of water, a lot of Crystal Light, a lot of coffee, a lot of tea. It's weird to say this, but I'm down a pound from yesterday. I'm like, huh, that's weird. And then the thing that makes me most excited is I pretty much now know my schedule when I'm in England. So I'm going to be with our good friends, James St. Pierre. I think it's going to be August 13th.
Cool.
St. Mary's for a couple of weeks. And then I'll be with my friend Jamie doing a workshop on what we would call here in the States Labor Day weekend. So
beautiful. All right. Lots of good stuff. Lots of good stuff happening. And make sure everyone checks out Dan John University. As always, Alex, what about you? Give a mention to where people can follow you and see all your cool stuff.
Yeah, if you go to alexsalkin.com, it's ALEKSSALKIN.com. You can read all sorts of wonderful free articles that I've got on there. You also have the opportunity to get my free ebook, The 9-Minute Kettlebell and Bodyweight Challenge, which I think you will find very stimulating. And Pat laughs, but Dan smiles. But stimulating is a good word for it. Trust me. It is even the nice thing is you can do it even if you're already doing a current program. So it's not going to interfere with your training. And it's fun on a bun. So there you have it.
Fun on a bun.
Dan looks like he's going to say something.
Mm-hmm.
Also, too, I completely redid my gym. And Pat, good for you. You are on the Hall of Fame.
What?
Your Pirate Map, 14-day Pirate Map, the Fat Loss Pirate Map is on my Hall of Fame.
Awesome. Maybe we can get a preview of that next episode or something to see the new setup. That'd be cool. All right.
Yeah. In fact, maybe I can take care of that for you. Yeah.
Sounds awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. A pleasure as always. Thank you, Alex, for being our special guest today. And same time next week, I believe.
I apologize about my little issue. It's kind of embarrassing that I had to power up something else that I rarely power up, and I lost the cord to my. I went like this, and I put it down, and then I went like. And then when I put it down, it just went off into the ethos.
Always forgiven, Dan. Always forgiven. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the awesome pressing plan. And everybody, if you enjoy this, please, as always, share, comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll see you next time. Adios. Goodbye.
Goodbye.